Welcome to the Success Times Happiness podcast, a platform dedicated to engaging discussions with inspiring individuals aimed at nurturing personal development. I'm Richard Thompson, your host, a father, entrepreneur, world champion Ultraman, and passionate about all things high performance. Our mission is to empower both ourselves and you to unlocking our fullest potential, recognizing that this life is no dress rehearsal. While I may not have all the answers, this show serves as our collective journey to uncover them. This episode is a little bit different. We thought we would bring in a good friend of mine, Chris Massie, ex-professional golf player, businessman, all-round good bloke. He reached out to me, loved the show, but wanted to take control of the podcast studio and in turn ask me the questions. And so I reluctantly said yes. I don't think it's the best episode we've ever done, but he did ask some great questions about my journey, the highs and the lows of it, and where we ended up here in the studio and in the firm of Thompson Legal. It's been fun to reminisce and reflect on the last 10 years of my life. Some of the stories you'll know, some of the stories you won't, but in any event, it was fun to do. So thank you to Chris. Thank you for everyone who listens and supports the show. Let's get into it. Fine, you can start.
Well, welcome to the Richard Thompson podcast.
Yes, the Success Times Happiness podcast, and I am a guest today of my own show.
It's a little bit weird, isn't it?
Chris Massie, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me, Richard.
My pleasure.
Just to give a little bit of context to your listeners, we had Richard come to our business and present. What was it? The main context behind it was about the teams and leading teams and the people behind your group of people that you need to do, obviously, what you did, ultra marathon running. And listening to Richard through that time was quite amazing for me. I got a lot out of that. And hence after that, I asked him if I could interview him on his own podcast. So here I am.
And Chris, I'd struck a chord with you because you've been in professional sport yourself, as in golf, which I find very unique and very the absolute opposite to what I did in a lot of aspects. But and now you've gone on to leave that part of your life and focus on business, and with you and your other directors are incredibly successful in what you do in sort of commercial real estate. So yeah, I don't know where today's going to go. It terrifies me a little bit when I'm not in control.
How about we start with your highlights, your career? I've got a few little dot points here, but I might let you kick it off with, when you won your first Ultra Ironman in Brisbane. It's because I want to peel back this onion a little bit to understand what makes you really successful and why the triggers that happen in your life growing up in your childhood to then one day decide, I'm going to go do this. And obviously that takes a lot of balls to do that. So, but first, let's just talk about what you did. Like I know a little bit, but let's really understand how good you really were.
Oh, we laugh at
and
this.
I don't want you to be humble.
We laugh at this joke that, as cyclists, you'd stop into a service station to refill your drinks or something, and there'd be always some old codger, who would tell you that he used to go all right when he rode. He used to ride bikes and he used to go all right. That would be a tip. Like every other service station you'd go to, you'd find that person. Now I'm that person talking to the people in Lycra. I feel like my listeners have heard the story before, but I did team sports going through school, found triathlon after school into university, or maybe the last year of school. I was terrible at it. I did 3 sessions of training, of training for a triathlon, thought I was awesome at it. Then I was like, I should try it for the cross-country team for school, and was not selected because I was terrible. First triathlon, I was last. And then it just sort of, over those, and this is when I'm between ages of 17 and 22, were really formative years, I guess, in planting my trajectory of how I view success and to a certain degree happiness. And not that my boys are at that age yet, but I think certainly for my mum, and I was a pretty good child growing up with mum. But, of all years to focus on high performance sport, to be 17 to 22 are pretty good years to be. focused on high performance sport when everyone else wasn't. Everyone else was out partying and spending up all their money on booze or whatever. But
why were you so into it through those years of 17 to 22? What was the driving factor for you not going out and doing what everyone else was doing?
I like to think that I feel like it gave me agency because it was an individual sport that it was all up to me. The more and endurance sport, unlike golf, which is so skill based, endurance sport is consistent. It's the nature of the qualities you need to be successful, in my view, are the qualities you need to be successful in life. Is consistency, is hard work, is just like that adage of, the harder I work, the luckier I get. That's and so when you start, the gains are really easy. So I was terrible at it, and I could realize early on that I needed to run more. I was not the smallest person, and so before I sort of went to the Ironman level, I did half marathons, which was huge for me. Like running 21Ks was insane. And then I did a couple of marathons, and that progressed my running a bit, I think. And, but I enjoyed the idea of what I put in, I got out of. And then you speak to any triathlete, it's pretty addictive when you get into that aspect. And I still wasn't that great. I quickly realized that I was better at cycling than I was at swimming. So by virtue of the formats of the sport, Ironman, half Ironman was better because the swim to bike ratio was much more in favor of the bike. So I gravitated there, and for probably a lack of competition, found amateur success locally, where I had not experienced that yet in triathlon. So I was working, like, I was at uni and I was training really hard. Well, I thought I was training hard, and then found that success, I guess, that improvement, and I didn't, interestingly, Chris, like I didn't have an end goal, which I think is really relevant to sort of the infinite game of life, business, relationships, is that you don't need an end destination. You just know you're on the trajectory. You're on that path of mastery. And so I loved that. And I worked.
I know, just pausing there for a moment, in my own journey, routine was something that I craved.
Yeah.
I imagine you would have been the same. So setting a goal was really difficult for me always, but I know if I set the routine to get what I wanted, the goal would come. Is that?
Yeah, but with golf, and I'm speaking out of school because I don't, what I do is not play golf. Like I can guarantee you, barring injury, you run for I can get anyone to run for 6 months and you will be a much, much faster runner than you started, right? But for golf, I feel like, you hear those stories like, oh, I had coaching and then I didn't coach. I didn't get a coach for 3 months and my game improved, or like it's just so skill based. So it's almost like you might work on your skills for 2-3 years and you only see the like benefit. How do you deal with that mentally when you're not getting that immediate feedback?
I think I was a little bit like you. I didn't have the natural talent some guys did have that I played golf with or played against. So I had to work twice as hard to be what I consider an average golf pro. But that also set me up for later in life and other things.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some of those guys have all that natural talent and they don't work so hard to get there. And then when they get there and they do have an issue, or the mountain gets quite steep, they fall off. So which is why, I went broke slowly over 10 years. Most guys only last a couple of years.
Yeah.
So, but it is true. Like, there are some attributes you need. Like we talked about it last time we were in the chat, Ian Thorpe, or the greatest swimmers on the planet, they have longer arms, they have their feet, work differently, all of those things. So only so much hard work can get you.
Yeah.
You've got to work hard. And that's where the greatest players on the planet in golf, like Tiger Woods, he had all of the attributes you needed and worked harder than anyone else. You put those two things together, he's unbeatable.
Yeah. I also find it amazing with golf is that, like, my event was, let's say we're still at Ironman level, that's sort of 9 hours of racing. And whilst you can sort of afford to go in and out of sort of flow state or otherwise, you're still you're still doing it. But for golf, you've got to like have this ability to really switch on for maybe from your setup to the shot. Maybe that's 30 seconds, but then you got to switch off. And interestingly as well, like I find like it's so interesting. Like I really find it interesting because you could have, 17 or let's say front nine's perfect, and then the 10th hole you completely shit the bed, and you've got to be able to just forget that. Like it's just like not even existing. That did not even happen, and to be able to be effective at that, but also in between shots, completely downregulate, completely switch off, not have any focus on what you're doing or what the shots just played, and you're like, is that something that's teachable for you?
No, I don't think so. I think some of those you either have or you don't.
Right.
Like I've seen really intelligent golf pros and they're on all the time. And I've also seen guys that are dumb as dog shit, where they just turn up and you can see it in their eye. There's nothing going on upstairs. They just hit the golf ball and it's easy. And same with the guys that are really switched on. I think the guys in the middle, like myself, might struggle.
So I found Ironman and enjoyed that. And I think it's an interesting process because, long story short, to qualify for the World Championships, which is the Hawaiian Ironman, world famous one-day sport, there's 2 spots available in Australia per event for the under 24s. So you had to get top 2. Or if let's say the second place didn't want to go, it would go to third. It would roll down.
Mm-hmm.
First time I tried, my family went down. I got 5th and it rolled to 4th. So I missed out by a spot. So I was like, okay. And that, interestingly, my family was so confident, and maybe I was so confident that they brought in like, we're going to Hawaii, like posters and banners, like expecting that to occur, but I didn't get it. Trained again for another year and then improved my time by about 15 minutes. Got 3rd and the first 2 took it. So I missed out again.
Horrible.
I missed out again. Yeah, you say horrible, right? And I was done. And I knew the 2 guys that beat me and I stoked for them. And then I was like, okay, I really want to go to the World Championships. Because for the last 5 or 6 years, that was what I was focused, like not focused on, but that was what I looked up to as like the pinnacle of the sport.
That was your drive?
Yeah, I think so. And then at some point in that journey, obviously not the first triathlon where I came last, but at some point I was like, actually Ironman might be possible. And I bet that the next step would be the World Champs for the Ironman. And so then I trained, I went part-time at uni, and went to this race in WA that only had 1 spot. And at that stage, like no amateur under 24 had broken this 9-hour barrier in Ironman. Now it's like everyone does it. But at that stage,
it's possible, right? Once someone does it,
well,
everyone can do it.
Technology certainly has helped as well. But at that stage, no one had done it. And there was 1 spot. And I broke 9. I did 8:55 and won. So we're off to Hawaii in 11 months' time from that qualifying race. I had a whole year to prepare, essentially. And then it was just that period of time. And I focused so heavily on this period of time and this whole experience to this race because I truly believe it reset my, like, how my brain works because I'm not gifted. I wasn't athletically, nothing came easy, right? And I was an overweight goalie and wicketkeeper because it involved the least amount of running. Like that was my past. And so even my old schoolmates, like I'm preparing for this race in Hawaii, the World Champs at 23, and they're like, they only knew me as the pudgy goalkeeper. They're like, what are you doing? Like you're going to Hawaii. And so anyway, trained perfect conditions. Lived at home. Mum cooked everything.
Yeah.
I was on scholarship then at that stage for uni. And so they were like, whatever you need. Deferred exams, all the things. And went to Cairns, did heat training, like just all for amateur sport, right? But it was a pathway to get your professional license. And went to Hawaii on debut and won the Junior World Championship.
Tell me about the professional license. Like I know, when I was playing golf, people would go, how did you get there? And I did an apprenticeship. And they go, what? There's an apprenticeship to be a golf pro. Yes, there is. Do you have to do a certain thing Like what's the criteria?
Yeah, there is criteria.
What's that look like?
If you win your world championship and as an
Yep.
amateur, you're in.
Yep.
Or if you don't win and there's like regional championships and you have to come in with a percentage of the winning time.
Yep.
But it's pretty loose. And there's a difference, a big difference, as you would expect, as you could attest, I'm sure, that there's a difference between getting your license and making it your full-time job.
Yeah.
Or getting it paid as a full-time job. So, but it was all performance-based criteria. There's no, as long as there's no apprenticeship. It's just, you do this, you get it. Yeah. So I got it for a couple of years whilst I was finishing uni, and then became a lawyer. And I was struggling. I probably didn't. Had a couple of good results, but that's like going into amateur. From the amateur, the journey to the world championships was so linear. Like it was just bigger race, better result. I trained more, better result, and then there was just this like upward trend. And then I got my license, and now I'm against the big boys, and I'm getting my ass handed to me. A couple of podiums in bigger races, but. It was just ebb and flow. It was just the roller coaster I couldn't handle. And I probably didn't have the right mindset of like seeing the journey for what it is. I was trying to go, well, I just need one result and then it'll unlock a bunch of sponsors and then life will be easy. But so I was putting way too much weight on, and maybe you can attest to that. Like, this one tournament, everything rests on this one tournament. When in I think I would have performed better had I gone, all right, we're here for 10 years. Like, let's just play in this game for 10 years and see where we're at the end. So after 2 years of having that license, the pro license, I shelved that, retired from the sport, and became a lawyer at the age of 26.
And then obviously you found your way back. Was there a defining moment, a thing that happened in your life, a time where you can attribute, I'm going to have a crack again? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's probably as a very close mate of mine. I hadn't gone back to Hawaii, so the races, the Ironman World Championships is held in Hawaii on the Big Island every year, and well, now it's changed a bit, but and I hadn't gone back there since 2008, since I became world champ, junior world champ, and a friend of mine, I think it was 2014, he raced, and he was like, "I want you to come." And cheer for me. I hadn't been back. I was like, okay. And I'd just been a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 5 years, and I was like, okay.
Were you doing any training? Like, were you just for fun? Like,
no,
back
then I was doing trail running, which is a terrible sport. It's the sucker sport. A lot of people love it.
You're doing the Pomona race every year?
Yeah, longer runs though, like Blackwall 100K, Blue Mountains 100K, things like that. Anyway. And I went to Hawaii, and 2014, I'm a lawyer. I see my mate racing in the world champs. He gets 5th. Huge result for him. And I was like, yeah, I love this. Like, I want to be back here. I'm now 30. I wonder what that 23, 24-year-old could do in a 30-something-year-old body. So it's sort of definitely just the itch was there from that result, from being in that environment again. And so that sent the wheels in motions. I literally had not trained, not swum or ridden a bike for 5 years. And I was like, all right, I want to get back into it. And so then the whole year trained to qualify for the Hawaii, qualified for Hawaii. And then in 2016, I was practicing law and had a online coaching business with a mate of mine, and that was going well. And I just thought, well, I want to go to this race, this World Championships, but I'm not super pumped with law. I want to leave law and focus on the coaching and see where the race takes me if I go to the World Championships as an amateur. Who knows where that could go? Because I was young. I was probably 31. 31. What's
the peak age, just for people out there that don't know?
Late 30s.
Yeah.
Mid to late 30s, you'd say. I mean, there's still some really, really quick late 20s as well, even mid 20s.
Do you think that technology is going to bring that age down? I know in golf, it used to be you couldn't win a major until you're in your mid 30s.
Yeah, right.
And Tiger came along and, he's 22, so
Yeah, no, it definitely has. And not that I don't follow it too closely now, but I'm pretty sure like
It's coming down.
mid-20s now win the world champs at Ironman.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so like the went to the world champs. I left law and went all in on the coaching business and learned a lot from that process in business generally. And we were able to create, we had, I think at its peak, we had 10 coaches around the world and 140 athletes. This is before COVID hit. Like, this is years before COVID hit. So it was all remote and it was sort of well and ahead of its time. And that was really enjoyable on a business level to grow something from nothing. And I think I've always been an entrepreneur by heart.
Yep.
Ever since, I was picking mulberries from the local tree and selling them at the shops.
Did you think the business growth helped you when you decided to go, I'm going to have another crack, because you had the ability to put your team together? Do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And the team that I put together for Ultraman, which is a 3-day event, are all part of sort of the fabric of the coaching sort of business as well. So anyway, I went to the World Champs 2016. I've never been fitter in my life. Well, it's arguable, but very, very fit. I definitely expected to win. It was a matter of, could I win the whole thing, the whole amateur race, not just my sort of age division. And then I thought I would be in contention of the lead off the bike, right? It would take me, so it's 4K swim, 180 bike, and 42 run. I thought it would take me 180K on the bike to get to the lead of the race, to then see what I can do on the run. And I swam out of my skin, and I was in the lead of the race at kilometer 20 on the bike. And I expected to be 180, and the bike was my strength. And so I just threw the rule book out, and there was 3 of us, or me and 3 others from anywhere else in the world, and we just like drilled the bike for the next 50 kilometers. Like,
gave it everything.
I wasn't mature enough to go, these guys are going to blow themselves up. I'm just going to play it. Like, I'm already ahead of my schedule.
Yeah.
Just chill. But I didn't. I was like ego and, well, if these guys are the lead, then I'm not letting this go. And I blew myself up. And so groveled home, I don't know, top 20 or something. But I really gritted my teeth. I've completely fucked that. Like, I had that all ready for me. All I had to do was chill, but I chose not to. I chose to push the envelope too hard, and I paid the ultimate price there. But yeah, anyway, and then came back and I was like, I got this fitness. I'm back. I'm in my early 30s. What am I going to do with this? And then based on life sort of events, I only had sort of 6 months to do something with that fitness. And then Ultraman came on my radar. And that was a 3-day event that, again, 10K swim, which is still 2.5 hours of swimming, but relative to the event, small, which helped me, and a lot of biking. And so then we did that. And that's a 3-day solo race. And you need a team with you that goes around the whole event with you, behind you in a support car, like professional cycling. And so I put all that fitness into this one race. Had a knee injury going into that because I ran too much, but we sort of managed through that. And the team, we broke the world record. It's an amateur sport. There's no prize money. So it's all based on sponsorship. But our team, we went and we won the race. It was at Noosa. Broke the world record on debut.
What year was that? That 17?
17.
Yeah.
And then following that, we thought, all right, well, that's pretty easy because it's in our backyard. We should go to they have a world championship, funnily enough, in Hawaii as well, on the same island, a month later than the 1-day event. Went there in 2018, then year after. We won that. And then COVID hit. I wanted to break 20 hours. So our world record was 21 hours, 21 minutes. That was the benchmark. And I wanted to go, okay, well, what's like the 4-minute mile? What's the sub 10 before it was something, the 100 meters? What was something that would be like, not sure we can actually do that? And that was breaking 20 hours. We worked out the math, put it all through the system.
So nearly an hour and a half quicker than anyone else.
An hour and a half that I had done, let alone anyone else.
Yeah.
And people who had been in the sport had said leading up to that, I don't think it's possible, right? Based on what you have to do. And I knew that you'd have to have a very, very good showing every single day, and you'd be close. And I was very aware that there are a lot of better triathletes than me, and not all of the professionals in professional triathlon move obviously to the 3-day event because there's no money in it. And would you really, if you're doing well enough in 1-day triathlon as a profession, there's nothing in it for you to go and do this 3-day event that's for masters essentially. So I also knew that had the benefit of the fact that the competition was low. So I mean, the world record was cute, but it's not. I'm sure there'd be 20 professional triathletes that could rock up tomorrow and break it as well.
Give it a shake.
But they don't, and I guess you can only play with what you can play with. Anyway, so I threw it out there that I wanted to break 20, and we had this whole marketing campaign around sub 20, and had some really impressive sponsors on board for that. A documentary was getting filmed about it, or it was filmed for it.
Is it on the air yet?
No. Hopefully next year it'll get released because it's all cut, and we've got a 12-minute trailer or preview for you. It's really
good. Cool.
Yeah, really, really cool. But and it was a really hard time of my life as well.
I'm going to ask you some tough questions then, right?
Yeah, it was a really, really tricky.
Or you could just get straight to.
No, it was a really tricky, really tricky time of my life as well. Trying to train 40 hours a week, trying to raise 3 boys in a house where you're now doing that solo, and trying to keep all the balls in the air, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Plus having a camera in your face and documenting that daily about the ups and the downs. And there was a lot of downs because there's so much self-doubt. There's so much challenge to, the purpose of what you're doing and whether or not physically you can do it, but emotionally, whether you want to do it or whether you can do it emotionally. How
did you get up every day? Like, obviously when you're down, and it's tough, right? What was the thing that made you just get out of bed and keep going?
There was a lot riding on that race in the sense that the sponsors were in, they bought into it, they believed in me, and we had to delay.
This is the one that got delayed, right?
Yeah, delayed by a year from COVID.
Yep.
And then delayed by another year because of my personal circumstances. So they were all on board. They were all so supportive and wanted to see me win. And that support really
Can't quit then, hey?
No, and you don't want to either. And my boys, I wanted to show them what was possible. And despite being placed in that place of adversity, and and so I trained my ringer off and had the most amazing support team, right? And everything up until then, I was like, whatever I've set my mind to, I've been able to achieve. And it's funny how you look back, and I guess the general motif of my existence, I think, is that you can, like what Steve Jobs says, you look back and you can connect the dots. But we had done reconnaissance, like the practice, about a month before the race, so still under full fatigue of training, like 40 hours a week. We had done day 1, swim bike, 4 minutes under what we expected to do on the race, 4 minutes faster. We'd done not all of the 280 kilometer ride time trial, but we had done segments of it within
where it needed to be.
Exactly where it needed to be. Failing, like the contingency on day 2 was weather. If it was really windy, that would make it more challenging to nail the time that we needed to do. But it's in May at Noosa. It's pretty consistent weather. If it was really humid, it would have been harder. And then day 3 for the run, that was a big unknown. We needed to run a personal best time. And that was all about the setup of the first marathon. So we trained to the first, it was a double marathon run. And so we trained to the 2 marathons. The way you train that is you train to get to the end of the first marathon really fresh. and you can have there's key markers, like data markers as to how fresh you are. And so we needed to get through the first marathon in about 3 hours fresh after all that fatigue.
Yep.
And we did that. We did a 2:58 in training a month before this race under full fatigue and felt really good at the marathon mark. So everything was, we were very confident. We knew that it all had to play. You had to actually do it. But we were like, yeah, we've got this. Fortunately, as a result of the whole process and the delay of everything, it opened up going back to the World Champs 6 months before the sub-20 formal attempt. So we were able to go to Hawaii. The film crew went with me. And that was a wonderful experience. Terrible day one. Felt like quitting after day one because I was not in great shape physically on the day. But turned that around and succeeded. And won the World Champs for a second time there. And then we went back home, prepared for the sub-20, did the reconnaissance, did all the things. There was a guy from New Zealand, really, really talented athlete, ex-pro or was a pro from the first day from one day triathlon, had moved over. I said there's not many people that would. He did. He had come on various media platforms to say that sub-20 is not, he's there to beat me. He wants to win, but sub-20 is not.
It's not a thing.
Not a possible. Not yeah. He said he doesn't think, or his team said, sub-20 is not possible. But anyway, so race comes, and long story short, I get sick. I get a chest infection. That impacted day one, but I woke up terribly on day two, coughing up shit. Tried day two, had to pull the pin. Never pulled the pin on a race before. And it was that. And then I had an insult to injury. Not that that's really insulted, but he goes on, wins, and breaks 20 hours.
Breaks 20.
And so that was a lot, particularly in the circumstance of where my life was personally, and then setting this massive goal, and you've got all these sponsors that are just, they're in it because they back me, and I could understand that. And if that's, sometimes you get up and sometimes you don't, but I was disappointed, really, really disappointed, and not really knowing to do, if I'm being honest, Chris. Like,
how did you deal with that mentally? Like that's a defining moment in your life to then wake up one day and go, just put years and years into that. You've had the 2 race delays. You finally get to the race, and God strikes you down with a chest infection, something that you just can't race under those conditions. So I imagine you must have needed some help.
Yeah. I was probably resolute I was at peace with the race result because there really wasn't, anything. I think I'd be annoyed if I had done the best I could and fallen half an hour short, because everything in the data that we said we're nailing these times, and that would have been more like, oh man, I just wasn't good enough. And I truly don't know whether if I was full tilt and nothing went wrong, I'm not sure I would have beaten him anyway, because he was a few minutes below 20 hours. It would have been a great race, but I don't want to take that away from him. Like on debut in that discipline, he just didn't.
It sounded like you gave him the firepower to actually break that time.
For sure, right? And that is a.
Have you had a conversation with him?
I spoke to him the day after at the awards for sure, and emailed a few times after that. And I spoke at the awards party, to basically pay him all dues, because man, that's just a performance of a lifetime to do that on debut, and I'd done it. That was going to be my 4th race, and he had done it. He never done that distance. So yeah, all credit to him. But I sort of sat there. It probably took, I don't know, I'd done so much work with like mindset coaches as well in the lead up, and Rich Burrows was my mindset coach, and done so much work on myself in the lead up to it, and then just sat in quicksand for like 2.5 months, not knowing whether to pivot or persist with what I do. And I think it also exacerbated because of the fact that he broke 20. So it was done.
Mm.
If he'd done 20 in 5 hours or something, 20 in 5 minutes or something, then the carrot's still there. Then I'm like, because it was less about, well, it was actually, I wanted to know whether I could do it. That's what motivated me. I love the fact that everyone thought no one could. And I love the fact that I put myself out there that I could. But now, and I was toying up with this idea, like, well, it's now shown that it can be done. Do I still have the firepower to do it? And go again? And a few sponsors reached out and said, oh, we're happy to support you for another year. No problem. But I'm like, well, I know that it can be done now. And then, yeah, it was a tough couple of months because I'm just sitting there, literally not training, not knowing. I'm still recovering, obviously, because that takes you a fair bit of time to recover physically. But I'm just like, it was an empty feeling.
I can really relate to that motivational piece because when I decided I was going to go be a golf pro, I was in the pro shop at my local club and all my peers were in the shop and I said, oh, I've been offered a job as a golf pro. And they all literally looked at me and laughed and said, you're never going to make it. That's all I needed. That's the only bit of motivation I needed from them to prove that I could.
Yeah, right.
And none of those.
Did you think about them later?
Yeah, I still ran into them. They're still locals here and they're good people. They don't understand the impact it had on me for not just golf, but life. Because that was the turning point of, if someone ever says to me that you can't, well, then that's the motivation I need to go, I think I can.
Yeah.
So, I think all sports people have that moment in their life where they get told they can't or it's not possible. And that's when you go and chase that dream.
Yeah, I don't know whether whenever I heard that it isn't possible, if I'm being honest, my initial reaction is, well, maybe it isn't, which is, I think, a common response when you hear the critics. You're like, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe that isn't the wisest goal to put out. But I don't know whether I've used that. I don't know. It's hard to remember. I use that as fuel, but I also never really I don't want to give that too much weight because the goal is intrinsic for me. It's like, this is what I do. And that's where I guess when I was sitting there for 2.5 months, literally just aimless a bit, I knew that I was very good in my life at having a goal and throwing everything at it. Yeah. But I just didn't have the next goal because I didn't, and which is a failure on my part because even if I got the sub 20, I didn't have it.
What's next?
There was no next because it was just like so much has happened in my life in the last few years, and this is massive, and I don't know what will happen. I didn't feel like I had the capacity to understand or even put any time or attention into what's after this. And so I would have fallen in a heap, I think. It would have been a drunk heap if I was successful, but it would have been a celebratory heap. But it would have still been like, well, what do I do now?
The emptiness of actually
finishing. Even doing it, and you're breaking 20 and you win, let's say, and you go, okay, now I've done that. What is next? Like, you could go maybe on a speaking tour for a little bit, but that's got short legs on it. And so I was just like, I really should have had a
plan B.
Well, not even a plan B, but just what's next, And so that caught up to me quickly because there was no media or there was no runway because there was no success.
So you wake up on the first Monday afterwards and go, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And I've probably got the opportunity to do it one more year, let's say, or even 2, if you're being generous, or if I'm successful. But I'm still going to be here in this same position of decision making
at some point
in a year or 2.
Yeah.
And so then that was like, okay.
So that decision was now forced on you.
At some point, to a certain, like the bank was dropping while I was not really working and certainly not on contract anymore. I was just like, I knew that I had, I don't know, maybe 4 months to make a decision.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there, just going. And I look back, and part of me is like, oh man, I'm annoyed that it took me that long to sort of
figure it
out, but it did. You can't rush that, I don't think, either. And I knew that as soon as I had a goal, as soon as I had something to focus on, it would all line up. But I had to truly want that. And I think that's a big component of people. Like it needs to sit with you. You need to sit with it and be so like unapologetically like, yes, that is what I'm going for. Otherwise, the first hurdle you hit, it's going, this is all too hard. So I had to be really clear and take my time with it. So I wasn't in any rush, and that was probably also a downside because I was like, it'll take some time to get there.
You've literally been running for 10 years.
Yeah.
So you need a little break, I would imagine, mentally, physically, all those things.
And that was also troubling, like when I was struggling with life generally in that period, I did see a therapist, and everything you read and consume is like, well, the way out of, mental health issues is exercise.
I can't do any more running or swimming.
Exactly. That's my job, right? Literally, It was paying a salary for 4 years, and so it was just a job. But I didn't have that as an outlet to remedy. If anything, it was doing the opposite. So I struggled with that. But yeah, I learned a lot about myself, and I look back and I'm super proud of the ability to get through what I had to in training, whilst dealing with the shit that life is sometimes.
Sometimes. So 2.5 months sitting there, twiddling your thumbs. What was the defining moment that you woke up and said, righto, this is my next challenge? I
would say the number one fan of this show is my mum's sister, my auntie, and Suzanne. And
Suzanne, hello, Suzanne.
And she'll be the first one to listen. And and she called me one day, and she's a beautiful human, softly spoken, really intellectual, and without being rude or offensive or forceful, she basically said, get your shit together. And you got 3 boys who you spend all of your existence with outside of your training. You need to think about their future. You need to think about their, creating a secure, financially secure and beautiful life for them, and even their children, like generational sort of thoughts. It needs to be no longer about you. Think about them as to what you decide next. And that wasn't to say you shouldn't do sport, but it was use that as the motivation, not just think about yourself because you're sitting there in a sort of pity party.
Self-pity. Yeah.
And that was all I needed, right? And so I was like, okay, worked out what I actually liked about sport, about the triathlon, and it wasn't swim, bike, and run, which is the reason why in the past when I've retired, I never kept swimming or riding. I run because it's easy and it's good for fitness and for mental health. But I never enjoyed the swim, bike, and run. And I don't know about you, right? Because you still play golf.
Yeah.
How does that sit with you, knowing you've done so well? And I'm digressing and not answering the question, but how is it the fact that you've used to play professionally and now you're not, you're still on the amateur tour, but obviously your game's not as good as it once was, but how do you find solace in that?
Beer, generally. I think, I've just played a few senior events. So I'm still a PJ member, and I didn't play poorly, didn't play great, but just to be out there, enjoy, to be 50 and still be able to go and play golf competitively is pretty cool. And it's not about money anymore. It used to be, that was your job. Nowadays it's a byproduct of if you play good, you get a small check. But for me, it's just, I found the love of golf again for what it is, out there with your mates, having a game. You can do it on your own. You can take your partner with you, your wife, girlfriend. You can take your kids. You can do a lot of things with golf. And I think for me, that's why I've continued playing. I did spend many years not playing. I had 5 years where I'd despised the game. Didn't want to go anywhere near it because mentally I still thought I could play, but physically and just not having the practice, the repetitions under the belt, it just didn't work. So.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm probably still certainly in the don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah,
place. So yeah, anyway, then I realized that I actually really enjoyed the business of it, like the hustle of the sponsorships and the relationships that I have with the sponsors, and the idea of setting a big goal and working, like reverse engineering that and setting a team around me to fill the gaps that need to be filled to allow us as a team to achieve that goal. I loved all of that, but it just wasn't swimming, biking, or running that I enjoyed. And so once I got to that place, and there's a little bit of apprehension because it's such a unique situation, as you would know, right? Like you're almost living on perpetual adrenaline as a professional athlete. Like that it's unique. You know that what you do for a job is not everyone's job, and it's so addictive, and just work really hard, and then you're like, well, now I'm back at corporate. If I go back to be a lawyer, which I sort of thought of in the past as like that would be not a great outcome to go back to be a lawyer after 5 years of practice, but to go back, how am I going to fill that sort of adrenaline or the feeling of like you're waking up and you're springing your step every single day? I'm just a lawyer, right? So that was
There's a lot of people who would love to be just a lawyer. Let me tell you.
But yeah, and so but when I realized that those things, like the goal setting, the big goal, the working as a team to achieve it, and the networking and the business side of it, I was like, okay, well, it might be law, and maybe it's starting my own law firm, but I won't know that unless I go back into law, and that would go into the idea of helping the future of my boys, etc. And so, went back into law and loved it. Loved the commercial side of it. Loved helping clients, buy, sell, do all the sorts of things with their assets to make them wealthier and happier and more successful. And then was upfront about it from the start and just said, I think I'm wanting to start my own firm. And that was a huge thing because I was so risk adverse otherwise before all this. And if I've got the mic, then I'll say two things that there's other than my auntie Suzanne, who was pivotal and has always been pivotal and will continue to be. My mum's was there for me the whole of, certainly always, but certainly in the last 5 years or 6 years, and which has been not easy for her. And then my fiancée Michelle, we're getting married next year, and we share a beautiful daughter Summer. She's just been a rock and the most amazing person you can imagine. Just she met a professional athlete. Now she's married to a corporate lawyer, but she's been. I think she's at peace with that. But she's the most amazing human, and I'm forever grateful that she's with me. And then lastly is my best mate, Nick Quinn, who's he's on reflection the best. I couldn't imagine having, like, he would be the absolute quintessential definition of best mate.
He's a brother from another mother.
Yeah, like unconditional. We share it together that we want unconditionally. We want each other to succeed.
How long have you guys been best mates? Were you going back to school,
No,
or is it through?
It's probably been
through the journey of triathlon. Ultraman,
or? Correct. It's probably 10 years now, maybe 11 or 12. But I haven't experienced that before. Where a success by him, I genuinely have an intrinsic feeling of success for myself. And I know that he chose the same way. So it's funny how life, as I said, looking backwards, drawing the lines, you don't necessarily know where that journey is going, right? But you look back and you'd go, man, I've gone through a lot to get to where I am right now. But where I am right now is the greatest. It's like, it's not without its challenges and it's not without its, difficulties, but so thankful to have gone through what I did to get to this place, because I have always so desperately wanted to be this place.
It's pretty cool.
Mm.
I think, success is no fun on your own. There is nothing worse than high-fiving yourself on a Friday afternoon, right? So whether it be in professional sport or in your professional trade, whatever that is, if you've got to do it with people and good people, whether it's your best mate or your business partners, your wife, your partner, because on your own, it's a very lonely place. And that's what I found early days in golf, because it's just you. There's just you and a set of clubs and a golf ball. There's no one to blame but you. You've got coaches, you've got all the other things that you need. But like you, when you're running ultra marathons, if you didn't perform, there's no one else to look at but you. Whereas in your chosen career now, you've got a team of good people around you that obviously, help with your success or what you view as success. And having those people around you would make it a lot more, so much better for you.
What was success for you as a golfer when you're on the tour?
Making a check each week.
Yeah, okay.
In those days.
Monetary.
Yeah, it was always monetary once you get to that level where that's your only source of income. And I think for me, I realised...
Was there as a longer term goal, Chris?
Sorry?
Was there a longer term goal? Like, was there to make the US circuit or...
Oh, every kid, everyone dreams that they're going to be that guy early. I was fortunate enough to figure out that I was never that good. Like, I was good, but I wasn't that good. When you turn up to play in an event, like playing in the Australian Open, and you get paired with a young fella in the Australian amateur team called Mark Leishman. Okay. I'm the veteran golf pro, been out there for 10 years and whacking around, and his game was different to mine. The very next year, I get in the Australian Open, and I had to win a playoff to get in that Australian Open. And who was I up against in the playoff? Jason Day. Right, he was the world amateur champion, 16 years old.
Wow.
And I was in awe of this kid. Like, that day I beat him. I beat him to get into the Australian Open. But I learnt well before that those guys are different.
Sure.
They're different. And for me, I was very fortunate to learn that early and spend most of my playing time with the major sponsors and giving them a good day out rather than the golf event being all about me. I turned that around to be all about the people I was playing with.
Yeah, right.
So it made it easy for me to make enough money to support my kids at the time and do what I did, whereas I was probably making 2 times, maybe 3 times more than the winner of the tour by the side deals and sponsorships and other things, and making sure that those people, looked after me and I looked after them.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a different way of looking at it. Not too many people did it.
And why do you think now you guys as a group have achieved the success you've achieved in business?
I think we do it a little differently. We run in a team of teams. So we are, basically a number of football teams in a business. So, every part of the business we've got our leaders. Then we've got our proverbial halfback and 5'8", and so everybody runs together. So there is nobody, and for the listeners out there, we've got a commercial real estate business. So there's no other business out there that runs like that, where we run together. Most real estate businesses, you've got an agent sits in the corner and he does his thing and he tries to hide everything from the world because someone finds out someone else is going to do the deal. So for us, it's about the teamwork.
You say you got a real estate business. Are you not the biggest real estate business in Ray White in the world?
Oh, I don't know about commercial. The world. We do more transactions than any other Ray White business, like commercial business
in the world.
Yeah,
that's pretty sensational.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And we do 500 and something transactions a year. That's 1.5 a day of commercial stuff.
Commercial.
So we do not sell. In the housing world, that's probably not a big number. But
no. But you're not doing resis. You're just doing commercial. Yeah.
Just the commercial space.
Yeah. And what I find super inspiring on a business level is that you guys that's where you're placed. And I just, by happenstance, run into you a few weeks ago in town, and you and your business partners are doing some leadership morning with a high performance
leading teams,
coach that helps that, and I'm thinking, oh, you've got the lead. Surely you've got the leaders from all the your different, the smaller teams within the company, but it was just the directors.
Yeah.
Like you have this ability to go, when we've got so much more to learn, like this growth mindset and this sponge of like, oh no, we need to learn more. We need to be better leaders. I found that remarkable.
Yeah. I think that's driven primarily by Michael, my business partner.
Yeah.
And that's where we look at our business as 45, 50 people. The only way for us to really get them to be better is for us to be better. So if you lead from the front, so if they can see us going out and getting coaching and being better leaders, well, then they're going to just do the same.
Yeah, I love that. That's really inspiring. Tip my hat off to you and to the other guys, because it's I don't think that's normal.
I think if you want to grow and be better, you've just got to keep learning. And in this world, the day you stop learning, you might as well stop.
All right, I'm going to ask you the final 5 questions, because I don't want to ask myself.
No, you're going to ask them, and I'm going to be silent, and you're going to respond.
First question is, what does success mean to you? Chris, come on. Oh, this is painful, answering my own questions. What does success mean to me?
You didn't think I'd throw that back at you, did you?
No, I'm not prepared. Codes will have to edit this hard. Understanding what fulfills you and throwing everything at it. The next question to myself, Chris, I can't believe you're doing this to me. What does happiness mean to you? And happiness is, for me, my family. When I say family, I mean my family at home. I mean my family at work. To be around people who are good people and loving people is highly underrated. A book that I would recommend to read. Fuck, you have caught me off guard. I wasn't prepared for this at all.
What are you thinking about? Everybody should read The Diary of a CEO.
Oh yeah, by Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah,
it's good. That's good business one.
100%.
Probably the one the book that I haven't thought about for a long time, but probably had the biggest impact on me, was a book that Mum put me on when I was young, called A Fortunate Life. Author was A.B. Facey, and autobiography by a man who had gone through Australian, had gone through a lot of adversity back in World War One, post World War One days, and that sort of was instrumental, I think, to see what defined gratitude. I think early days. I mean, Nelson Mandela's autobiography is crazy amazing. There's a lot, either one of those two. 4 guests going to dinner, live or dead, not friends or family. Who would I invite? Kobe Bryant.
I'll help you out here. You've got to bring a comedian to make it fun. You've
Okay.
got to bring someone who's done something amazing in the world.
I'll say Ricky Gervais.
Right.
As a comedian.
Someone who's done something amazing in the world. Not Nelson Mandela, because you're going to read his book.
Yeah. I'd say also Steve Jobs' book's really good.
That's good. You can invite him too.
Yeah,
if you
I
want.
know. I appreciate that. I mean, controversially, I'd say Elon Musk.
Okay.
Only because, it takes some person to set a goal that's outside of your own generation. Who's changed the world, Chris? Who would you invite? Give me some help.
Okay. I would like to have Ben Hogan, famous golf pro.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be my sporting guy if I was going to bring a sporting guy. If I was bringing a comedian, I would bring Russell Coit. I find him extremely funny.
Glenn Robbins?
Glenn Robbins, but not Glenn. Glenn can stay home. Russell Coit's got to turn
Russ
up.
comes in, yeah. Gotcha. Yep.
I think I would invite a crush.
Okay.
Somebody from that over the years. Probably every boy's fantasy when we were young. Probably Britney Spears.
Yeah, okay.
I think she would actually be really
good
fun to have her there. Have I got one left?
Yeah, you do.
I'd need a translator. I'd want to dive into the Chinese. What's his name? Xing. Yeah, Xing. I don't know how you pronounce it. So the president of China.
Okay.
Someone alive that you could just dive in, understand what's because you'd never get the real stuff that's going on, whether it be him or the Russian president or even the US president. One of those current sitting guys where you could have no one around and ask those tough questions.
All right, another one would be Marcus Aurelius.
Mhm.
So I'll go Ricky Gervais, Marcus Aurelius. Last question: who would we want? If you had one, who should we invite on the show, Chris?
Oh, a successful person that I know.
We don't have to know, but someone you'd want to hear from.
Oh.
We can then get the team out and try to find them.
Oh, we could always ask Dan White. So Dan's the CEO of the Ray White Group. He owes me a favour or two. How about you? You've got to answer your own question.
Yeah. I would like to invite my wife on the show when she's my wife. I think that'd be a cool chat. And I've tried to. When we started the podcast, I said to her that she should come on episode 100, and she said yes. But
What are we up to now?
89 or 90 or something, because she's backed out of that. So I'll throw that out and say she needs to come on.
Maybe you should do two, a pre-wedding and a post-wedding. Two-part series.
Yeah, no, but I'm not going to be a guest on the show ever again.
Why not?
I haven't enjoyed it at all.
I think you've done amazingly well, and you're an extremely successful human. You're a good human. And I think you skipped over a lot of things today that I know about you. I didn't want to peel the onion back too much. Very personal stuff that we've shared. And I think, pleasure to be here today.
Chris, I really appreciate your time and your eagerness to be on and interview me. And I really appreciate it, mate.
Pleasure.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you are interviewing the host of a podcast, turn to that host and tell them all about our show. It means a lot. Until next time.